The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me here in FRC Media. We're getting close to the November 5th election, and as we do every election year, we like to speak to as many candidates as possible so you can make informed decisions when you head to the polling booth. Here in Fall River, there is one state representative race that is contested. Current state representative Paul Schmidt is not seeking re-election, and there are 5 candidates seeking to replace him in the 8th Bristol District. I'm going to be speaking to one today, and pleased to be joined by Christopher Thrasher. He is the Republican candidate for state representative in the 8th Bristol District from Westport. Christopher, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's most appreciated.
So let me just ask you, for people in Fall River, and again, in Fall River, the 8th Bristol District, there's only 3 precincts in Fall River that will be able to vote in this race. That is precincts 1A, 6A, and 6B. So for those people who are watching in those precincts, Christopher, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you wanted to run for state representative.
Well, first of all, I serve on the school committee and on the finance committee and quite a few other town committees in Westport. And because of my work on those committees, I have seen firsthand where decisions made at the state level come down and really affect our cities and towns and really tend to saddle our cities and towns both with mandates, unfunded mandates that really cripple the municipal budgets. And seeing that really drives home the fact to me that there is a problem with a one-party supermajority on Beacon Hill. Yeah. And I earlier on this year was an unenrolled voter, and I chose to run on the Republican Party line because I see an opportunity for real problem solving to come up to the State House to try to reach across party lines and really solve some of the issues that really think are affecting everyday people in this district and across the entire Commonwealth. I mean, we have an affordability crisis here in Massachusetts, and I think it's time somebody stood up and tried to take a stand to try to fix things up there, and that's exactly why I'm running. Yeah. Now
we'll get into some of the issues in a few moments, but you took a very non-traditional way to get on the ballot. You didn't seek signatures the traditional way to get on the Republican primary ballot. You actually waged a write-in campaign.
I did.
During the primary, and I believe it was, 150 votes you needed?
The requirement was 150 votes.
Right.
In the end, we were able to attain that number in Westport alone, got close to 300 across the entire district, due to some hard work of volunteers and really getting people out. It's a tough ask to ask people to actually write in a candidate's name, especially when you're dealing with a primary where it seems like a lot of the voters had already voted through the early voting and absentee mechanism. So interestingly enough, as I said, I was an unenrolled voter earlier this year. I have since joined the Republican Party, and with the write-in, the way to get on the ballot through the write-in came about because no one was running in this race that was really talking about issues. I think that also there was it's certainly worth noting. Earlier this year, I was also a little busy. We just had our daughter in January of this year. Thank you so much. So, and it's funny how things come together when there were some other candidates that looked as though they may run on the Republican line and who chose not to or did not get the signature requirement. So there was no one running on the Republican line. And as I said, it seemed like the other candidates weren't really talking about issues. There wasn't really a lot of action happening on this or in this race. And I really felt like I could add something to the discussion to actually talk about things that problems that need to be fixed. And that's why I decided to jump in. And that's how the process happened for the primary election day. It was certainly some of the hardest votes I've ever worked for, and I hope to continue that momentum on through November with everyone's help here.
So let me ask you. Let's get into some of the issues that you feel are most important as you run? What would those be?
Well, first and foremost, as I mentioned, I see where there are unfunded mandates coming down to the cities and towns that really make it difficult for cities and towns to balance their budgets. And I think that it's something that when you're dealing with a supermajority on Beacon Hill, you've got a situation where there's not a lot of ideas that get talked about that to actually fix things. There's a lot of, I mean, we saw it at the end of the legislative session. I mean, really, there was a rush of bills there at the end that and very little actually got done. Of course, there've been some special sessions since then, but it's still clear to me that something's broken up there. And when you're dealing with a situation where affordability, inflation, yes, inflation's a national issue, but the affordability crisis really that's happening in Massachusetts, I mean, this is something we see it every day when we go to the grocery store. We see it every day when the cost of living just seems wildly out of proportion with any kind of increases when it comes to assistance or wages. And when you add on continued spending on things that may not necessarily be an everyday priority for individuals down here, it gets old when you see all of these wasted dollars that are going to programs that may or may not be a priority, and you see things, like I said, things that need to really be fixed, and somebody needs to go up to Beacon Hill with some ideas and really bring a voice for the district to Beacon Hill.
Can you give some examples? I mean, how can a state, let's say, make it more affordable for people to live? I mean, first thing that comes to mind is less spending, maybe taxes, taxes can be, adjusted in some way. I mean, how would you propose doing that?
Well, part of what makes it difficult, I think, is really again going back to the unfunded mandates and these formulas, these funding formulas that talk about how much of our tax dollars comes back to the cities and towns. These funding formulas have not been adjusted for decades, and so when a municipality is looking at how to actually make ends meet, that's why we have a lot of possibilities of overrides, and there's yes, we have the Proposition 2.5 that limits the property taxes, but that just means automatically cities and towns expect to raise taxes that much no matter what. So I think that kind of thing is certainly something that needs to be looked at. There are many other issues that come to mind why I'm running. I mean, one thing that I really feel strongly about is the offshore wind situation. I feel very strongly that we have been sold a bill of goods, and a lot of the perceived or expected benefits, the promised benefits of offshore wind, whether it's economic or environmental, really have not come to fruition. And in fact, when you look at the blade turbine breaking apart and washing up on our shores, it's a lot of these promises just they've been broken. And I think that's something that really there's nobody willing to stand up and try to revisit some of these things that have been negotiated. Some of these situations where liability caps have been imposed on the operators of these things for when something does go wrong. So that's something that comes to mind. And also, there's a couple of things that really hit me when I read about them statistically. Did you know that Massachusetts is actually ranked 50 out of 50, dead last in the country for senior economic security? And a large portion of that is because of housing, and we have very clearly a housing crisis in this Commonwealth. And I think that there really needs to be a bipartisan effort to look at some of these issues at their core, not just when it comes to what is happening with assistance or would be the senior circuit breaker, but also just, I mean, that kind of statistic, Massachusetts being dead last in the country, that's just something that's unacceptable to me.
Yeah. Let me ask you about the district. For people who may not know, this is a pretty wide spread out district. You've got those 3 precincts in Fall River, the entire town of Westport, and then you've got communities in New Bedford, Freetown, and Acushnet. One, have you been to all those places? And two, how do you, if elected, how do you plan to serve the diversity of those communities, meaning that you've got Westport that's like a, somewhat of a farming town and very rural, you've got two cities, two gateway cities. How would you approach that?
So first of all, to answer your question, yes, I've certainly been to each of these communities repeatedly and continue to be. I'll go back to Westport for a meeting tonight, then I think I'll be in Freetown and Acushnet, and then New Bedford again next month. We're just constantly all across, and we'll be back in Fall River here later this weekend as well. So it's something that I look at as a challenge that I'm very much ready for, because I think it's very interesting and rewarding to me, the prospect of serving a district that is so diverse. And when you look at the issues facing Fall River, the issues facing New Bedford, and the issues facing Westport, Acushnet, and Freetown, they are different, but yet it's really a cross section of not just the entire Commonwealth, but really the entire country. And it's something that really means a lot to me, to be able to take the concerns and take the voices of individuals in each one of these cities and towns and represent them on Beacon Hill. And I think that one thing I'm concerned about with some of the other candidates is that I feel like there are those who have shown their intentions maybe not to represent the district so much as vote for a party line. And I think that there are others who maybe have hyper focus on certain communities and a lack of focus with others. And I want to make it very clear that the reason I am running is to take the voices from each one of these communities and to amplify them on Beacon Hill. I'm not going to ignore any city or town in this district. Everybody's going to have their voice heard, and I'm going to represent the entire district.
You remember, as you mentioned, of the Westport School Committee, your experience there, how do you use that to help promote an education agenda, up in Beacon Hill?
Well, indeed. So there's a couple of things that I think are broken, and when I look at them, I see problems that I want to fix. I've had the good fortune to serve with an excellent school committee of very diverse voices, and we've been able to come together and solve problems, both behind the scenes and of course in the votes. And it seems to me that the ability to take to problem solve on all facets really is something that is necessary to be an effective legislature. Now to your point about a specific education policy, there is something that is broken when it comes to the way the state mandates special education spending. And when you have districts that have extremely tight budgets, and those budgets are really stretched to the breaking point because of the amount of money spent on special education assessments, it really makes keeping things in line very, very difficult. And I think that there is clearly a way to reset some of these funding formulas that does not take away from cities. And actually, it's kind of a rising tide lifts all boats situation. But I mean, when you've got a district like Westport, our budget's somewhere in the neighborhood of $22-23 million, and you have close to $800,000 spent on a single student for a special education assessment. And to be clear, we have to meet those children's needs. But the state really needs to do a better job of allowing districts or helping districts actually meet those needs, so it doesn't take such a huge disproportional chunk of the funding out of the city and town education budgets.
That gets back to unfunded mandates in some ways?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So let me ask you, whoever wins this race, they're going to be a new face on the legislature. It sometimes is tough to be a freshman legislator up there. How do you plan on, collaborating with not only those within your party, but those, you'll be here in Fall River working with, Representative Fayol, Representative Sylvia, of course, Senator Rodericks. How do you hope to use that collaboration to help you in your first term?
Well, first and foremost, I look at what I've been able to do already on the finance committee and the school committee, and I think specifically there's again very diverse opinions, and at the end of the day, it's about coalition building. We may not agree on everything, but we could certainly come together to fix a problem, to work on anything that we have common ground over. And I think that when you're dealing, especially with somebody like Senator Roderick's, I've loved working with him on a town level, and it's. To me, the important thing is being willing to cross party lines. It's being willing to talk about anybody who wants to fix a problem, to talk with anybody who wants to fix a problem. And I think that's the key. That's something I've had a lot of experience doing, and it's something I want to continue doing up on Beacon Hill.
There are 5 candidates in the race. 4 are from Westport, the other individual from Acushnet. This has traditionally been, my air quotes up here, a Westport seat, right? You've got Representative Schmid, before that, Senator Roderick's. It's the only full community that's within the district. Do you feel that's the case, and how will 4 of you potentially, split those votes?
Well, I think, again, my intention and the most important thing about representing a district to me is representing that entire district. So it's not just about one town, it's not just about one city, it's about representing every voice in that district. It's going to be interesting to see how the votes shake out. I think that some votes where you may think might be split might end up not necessarily being split. I don't know. It's a very interesting race. I believe there's more candidates in this race than any other state representative race in the Commonwealth, and I think that. There's certainly something to be said for having a lot of choices, but I would simply ask everyone to look at records and look at who has a record of working with coalitions across party lines and who can actually get things done. And that's why I'm here, because I really want to, I'm not just running for the sake of running. I'm running because I want to fix problems, and I want to be a voice for the district, the entire district on Beacon Hill. Finally,
I want to give you the opportunity to speak to the 3 precincts in Fall River on why they should vote for you on Election Day. So please, you have a moment.
Thank you so much. Well, so thank you for allowing me the time to be here. So there are 3 things that make an effective legislator. The first, and perhaps the most important, is constituent service. And as your legislator, I will always be available. My door will always be open. My phone number will always be ready to take a call to fix problems. That doesn't matter whether you're a Republican, Democrat, unenrolled, or any other party line. If you live in this district, I want to be there to help solve problems. The second thing that you really need is the ability to cross party lines and actually get things done. And with a history of coalition building that I've been able to have over the years, I feel like I have the ability to actually work to solve problems with people and legislators that are not necessarily in the same party that I'm at. It's not about a party line to me. It is about fixing problems. And the third thing that you really need are fresh ideas. And I think that's where we have a great opportunity in this district. We've had a representative for a very long time, and now we have the opportunity to elect someone who is going to come to the legislature with ideas to fix problems. And I certainly have plenty of those. I want to, again, be a voice for the entire district and bring everybody's voice on Beacon Hill, and I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
All right, Christopher Thrasher, Republican, running for the state representative seat in the 8th Bristol District. Thank you for joining me, and all the best. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us here in FRC Media, and please vote on Tuesday, November 5th.